Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we've got the Orioles game to go over. Obviously, I made an episode this morning talking about the Brandon Hyde firing and kind of, what it means for the future of this team, what it means in the current moment of this team. And, we had a whole celebration and recap episode going over the firing and, him getting fired, also our, catching instructor getting fired, and also just going over the statement and, just kind of analyzing everything going on with that. But the Orioles did just finish their game about a couple of hours ago. The Orioles lose another game. They lose 10-6 to the Nationals, and that also means that they lose this series to the Nationals as well. This was rivalry weekend, and the Orioles did lose this series already. Even if they go out and win tomorrow, they still did lose this series. So we're going to be going over that game. It was an absolute disaster, and it was like by the time it even got to the bottom of the first inning, the game was over. The game was over after, not even a whole inning, and the game was over. An absolute disastrous performance from Kyle Gibson. Probably the worst performance from an Orioles starting pitcher this year, actually, which is saying a lot because you look at guys like Charlie Morton, who has had horrible starts. Kyle Gibson put on it was an absolute disaster for this game. As the game went on, I guess it got a little bit better. The Orioles were able to go out there and score some runs, but the Orioles did lose this game 10-6. Jackson Holliday had a big 3-run homer, but Kyle Gibson started this game. Obviously, he's been bad for the Orioles all year, and Kyle Gibson gets the start. Can't even get through the first inning. Took him 40 pitches to record his first out. He ended up pitching 47 pitches through .2 innings and gave up 6 runs before he got pulled in the first inning by our new manager, Tony Mansolino, who went out to the mound and took him out of the game, which was obviously smart because the game was already over, but you had to salvage it in a way that you could. Let's just go over this game real quick. So going over this Orioles-Nationals game, the Orioles again, they once again lose. They are now 15-29 on the season. They are 14 games below 500, and they are officially 0-1 in the Tony Mansolino era. Another little thing about the Tony Mansolino, what happened today. Obviously, I did an episode today already talking about that, but he is going to be the interim manager for the rest of the season. They already told him that he's going to be the guy the rest of the season, and they might go out and see if they can maybe hire another out of organization hiring, or if things end up turning around, then we'll probably just keep Tony. But the Orioles do lose this game 10-6. They fall to 15-29 on the season, and they lose this series to the Nationals. They're already down 2 games in the 3-game series. And, they got to avoid getting swept tomorrow, and they play tomorrow at around noon. So, just going over this offense, it wasn't necessarily a bad game from the offense, I would say. The game was over after the first inning because of the pitching, so the offense doesn't get any blame for this game. They went out there and actually did pretty decent today. Jackson Holliday was leading off. He actually has, he did the best today of any Orioles player today. Jackson Holliday goes 2 for 5 with 3 RBIs and a home run. He had a 3-run homer in the 9th inning. The game was pretty much over in the 9th inning. It was 10-3. And then Jackson Holliday went out there and got a 3-run homer, which is very nice to see. Obviously, Jackson Holliday has been great this year. Actually, he started batting lower in the order to start the year, but he slowly moved his way up, and he's been the leadoff guy quite a bit here recently. And I think he deserves it. Jackson Holliday's been pretty great this year. He's been one of the better Orioles hitters this season. And Jackson Holliday, again, 3-run homer in this game, also gets 2 hits. A great game by Jackson. His average is almost up to a 270, and for a 22-year-old player, the second youngest player in baseball, like in terms of opening day rosters, the second youngest player in baseball, you'll take it. You will take it. This guy's going to be a future superstar. This guy's a pillar of this team, and with all the things going on with the, firing the manager and the future of this team and the way that the roster looks and, how it's being, managed by the general manager and everything like that, I know Jackson Holiday is a bright spot for this team, so that's always very exciting. Ryan O'Hearn today goes 0 for 4. Gunnar Henderson goes 1 for 5 with 3 strikeouts. Adley Rutschman goes 1 for 4. Cedric Mullins goes 0 for 4. Ramon Urias goes 1 for 4. Heston Kjerstad and Ramon Laureano both go 2 for 4, so 2 multi-hit games out of the right and left fielder. And then Michael Handley goes 0 for 2. So, I mean, you look at this game, and then Emmanuel Rivera came in as a pinch hitter. So the Orioles in this game put up 10 total hits and gave up 10 total hits and scored 6 runs, or they had 10 total hits and scored 6 total runs. Obviously, the only homer was by Jackson Holiday. They went 4 for 10 with runners in scoring position, and they left 6 guys on base. So the offense did its thing. Obviously, I'm not going to complain about the offense. This game was literally over within the first 15 minutes of the game. So I don't really blame the offense for having any sort of motivation to go out there and do good at all. A lot of the Orioles players were pretty, they were upset going into the game today. Obviously, because of the Brandon Hyde firing, a lot of these guys on this team, guys like Jackson and Gunnar and Adley, these guys have only ever played for one manager because they're so young. And Brandon Hyde was the Orioles manager for 7 years. So, this is the only manager that they know, and this is the first time having to experience getting a new manager in the majors. So it was a pretty big deal. A lot of players were discussing it, and the general consensus of what a lot of players were saying is that they feel like they let him down. The players feel like they let Brandon Hyde down. Brandon Hyde, from what the players were saying today, and obviously they're going to say that because he is the manager, and I don't know how true this really is. But a lot of the players were coming to his defense. A lot of them were saying that they love him as a person, and that it's never a good thing to see a good person get their, lose their job. Like Zach Eflin was saying, how it's a result of how we've played. So a lot of the players feel like they've let Brandon Hyde down, which in a way is true. But obviously, when something's wrong with the team and there's a common denominator with your manager, people are going to look for someone to blame, and Brandon Hyde just so happens to be that person. And I'll say this again, do I think Brandon Hyde is 100% at fault with everything going wrong with the Orioles? No. I don't think it's 100% at fault. I think it's a combined effort between the team going into slumps, him, and Mike Elias. I think I think mainly it's him and Mike Elias. Obviously, we got Brandon Hyde out of there, and the first game of the Tony Mansolino era didn't necessarily start off great. Obviously, we lose this game. But at the same time, it kind of was a little unfair because the starting pitcher in Tony Mansolino's literally his first game as a manager in Major League Baseball. He goes out, his starting pitcher goes out there, can't even get through the first inning, and just completely sold them the game. So speaking about the pitching, while we're on the conversation of that, Cal Gibson got the start today. He goes 0.2 innings, gives up 6 hits, 6 runs, a walk, has a strikeout, and has 47 pitches across 0.2 innings, and his ERA is up to a 16.78. And I think, again, this is one of those performances where when your starting pitcher can't even get through the first inning and gives up 6 runs, and it took him 40 pitches to record his first out. He got through 0.2 innings, 6 hits, 6 runs, 47 pitches. His ERA is at a 16.7, and he's 0-3. This is one of those performances where you cannot start him anymore. I don't know if they're going to run Kyle Gibson out of the bullpen. I don't even know if there's any room for him in the bullpen because Andrew Kittredge is going to be coming back soon, and he's going to be a big vital part of this bullpen. So I don't even think that there's any room for Kyle Gibson in the bullpen anymore. Charlie Morton, obviously, he got moved to the bullpen after his performances as a starter. But I could very well see Charlie Morton possibly maybe becoming a starter in place of Gibson, because I mean, there's no way that we start Kyle Gibson again for the rest of the season. I don't know if we cut him. I don't know if we put him into the bullpen. I don't know what we do. But there's no way that he can start another game for this team because we will just lose every single time. But Charlie Morton, ever since he started coming out of the bullpen, he's looked a lot better. And obviously he's had to, pitch less innings because he's been coming out of the bullpen. But Charlie Morton today has his best outing of the entire season, by far. Not even a question. I'm really proud of it. I'm really happy that he, did this, because obviously they signed Charlie Morton to be, a very big, vital part of this team, to be an innings eater. He ends up becoming a starter. Obviously, he didn't become a starter. He was a starter. Charlie Morton was a starter. He did absolutely horrible in every single start that he had. We moved him to the bullpen, and ever since we've moved him to the bullpen, he's been doing a lot better in the few innings that he gets per game. Maybe, and he's one of the relievers that can go, 2, 3, maybe even 4 innings if they need him to. And today was one of those days where they needed Charlie Morton to go far in this game, because your starting pitcher couldn't even get through the first inning. They bring in Charlie Morton, and I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and say that Charlie Morton had a bad game, because he didn't. He got through 4.1 innings, gave up 2 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, and 6 strikeouts across 4.1 innings, and a 62 pitch count. And his ERA has now dropped to a 7.68, which is good, because his ERA was sitting around an 11 for a while. But he's had a few good bullpen appearances, and he started to rack up some good innings for the Orioles. And maybe him going to the bullpen is all he really needed to just kind of find his stride and find his mojo. But I can very well see Charlie Morton moving back to being a starter by the time that this rotation moves back to whoever our 5 pitcher is. Obviously, you have Zach Eflin, Tomohiki Sagano, Cade Povich, Dean Kramer. Those 4 guys are locked in. But for the 5 pitcher, obviously it was Kyle Gibson. But with the way that he's been performing, there's no way that we can keep starting him. I think Charlie Morton could very well be back to being a starter on a very short leash. I think if Charlie Morton messes up and just goes back to having horrible starts and we just lose games off of it, I think we will eventually probably just move him back to the bullpen, because he's been performing well in the bullpen, so we might as well just keep him there. But I do think that they might move him back to being a starter, just because of how desperate we are for a pitcher. I don't know what that was. Because of how desperate we are for a pitcher. So I could see Charlie Morton moving into that 5 spot. If not him, then we're going to have to play that game again with, calling up Brandon Young or calling up Chase McDermott, and having him be our 5 pitcher while we wait for Grayson Rodriguez or, Kyle Bradish or someone to come back from an injury. So, but that's going to be a while before they come back. Like, those 4 pitchers that I named, those are going to be the 4 core guys moving forward. But we just don't have a 5 pitcher because our 5th pitcher moved down to being in the bullpen. But again, I can see him moving back up. We'll see what Tony Mansolino decides to do. I didn't have to say Brandon Hyde, because Brandon Hyde isn't on the team anymore. So it felt a little nice being able to say Tony Mansolino in charge of the Orioles. So Charlie Morton has a great game. He really helped out in this game. He stopped the bleeding as much as he could. Obviously, he comes into the game in a very weird scenario, but he got through 4 innings, so you gotta give it up for Charlie. Ciano Perez comes into the game, gets through 2.2 innings and gets 3 strikeouts and doesn't let up a hit, run, walk, or anything. So that's good from Ciano. Obviously, he's not been great either, so it's nice to see him go through almost 3 innings of perfect pitching. And then Yunier Cano comes into the game. He gives up a run and a hit. And then Seranthony Dominguez comes into the game, and he gives up 2 runs. But by that time, it was over. By that time, this game was already long gone. So, the Orioles lose the first game in the Tony Mansolino era, and they also lose their second of 2 series to the Nationals. So they have now lost both series to the Nationals. And the 3rd game of this series gets played tomorrow at around noon. So I'll have an episode up sometime tomorrow afternoon talking about the Orioles game. Hopefully they can avoid getting swept. Hopefully they can at least take 1 game and get the first win in the Tony Mansolino era, and then just try and move on and move forward from there. Because if we lose tomorrow, that'll be back-to-back sweeps, and we would fall 15 games below 500, and we would hit the 30-loss mark, which obviously this early in the middle of May, that's never a good thing. So hopefully the Orioles can avoid getting swept tomorrow. Maybe the Nationals' foot will be off the gas a little bit, even though it probably won't be, because they're fighting to get their season back on track. But the Orioles, again, just just another loss on the season. Kyle Gibson completely didn't even give this team a chance to win. And it sucks for Tony Mansolino because his starting pitcher goes out there and does absolutely nothing. And in his first game as a manager, he literally couldn't. It's just unfortunate is all. So hopefully tomorrow can go a lot better, and I expect that it will, because tomorrow we do got Zach Eflin on the mound. It's going to be Zach Eflin versus Michael Soroka. Michael Soroka has struggled a lot this year, a 6.43 ERA, 1.29 whip. He's 0-2 on the year, 14 innings, 14 hits, 4 walks, and 2 home runs. And Zach Eflin, obviously, he's been great all year. 3-1 record in his little starts that he's had, obviously, because he got hurt. 3.13 ERA, .96 whip, 23 innings, 19 hits, 13 strikeouts. So Zach Eflin's been doing great. We do have the pitching advantage in tomorrow's game. So, those are one of the rare situations for the Orioles where we actually have the pitching advantage. So hopefully we can go out there and, just get one game on the board, get the first win in the Tony Mansolino era, and just get the first win, avoid getting swept, and move forward from there. Thank you guys so much again for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. I appreciate all the support so much. This was a 2-episode day. Obviously, I made the episode this morning talking about the Brandon Hyde firing, and then obviously the episode right now is going over the Orioles game. So I'll have an episode up tomorrow afternoon sometime, probably right after the noon game, discussing the Orioles game. Hopefully they can avoid getting swept tomorrow, and we move forward from there. But again, make sure to follow up on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and I appreciate you guys so much again. I'll see you guys in the next one. You have a great rest of y'all's day, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.